Morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar this morning about the Premier of Queensland Export Awards and our masterclass on how to write an award-winning application. Thanks very much for your interest, and we hope you get plenty of benefit out of today and follow through and continue with an application as part of this exciting program. My name is Reg Roberts. I'm the Acting Director of the Regional Network as part of the Queensland Operations team in TRQ, and I'll be hosting today's session. I did want to start with an acknowledgement of country, and I would like to acknowledge the Aboriginal peoples and Torres Strait Islander peoples as traditional owners and custodians of the country of which we meet today. We recognise the connection to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to them, their cultures, and to their elders, past, present and emerging. Thank you. Let's have a chat about what we're going to go through today, some of the topics we'll touch on as we move through the morning. So first, we're about the award itself, why apply, the benefits beyond just winning an award. We'll talk about the exporters and economic prosperity across the state, eligibility requirements, the different categories we have on offer, both the national awards and indeed our own state ones, key imperatives around the awards, what they're all about. We'll take you on a journey of the judge's perspective, which is very valuable when you write your applications. Talk about the critical response format, the judging criteria, real important key dates, and then further how you can leverage the award as you go forward. Helping us today in delivering this presentation, we're very privileged to have with us Ruth Wetmore. You can see her credentials online there. Most importantly, she comes with a great deal of success behind her. She has helped numerous applicants win export awards previously, and provided great insights into the awards there. You can see she's helped with 2022 Australian Export Award winners, 2022 multiple client export award wins, 2017 Atron Enterprises took from zero to $250 million per annum beef exporter, and is obviously a renowned economist turned export marketer. So Ruth, we're privileged to have you with us today. I'd like to hand over to you to run the rest of the session.
Thank you. So having a look at the spread of attendees we have today, I think we have a lot of fairly new people to the awards. What I'm going to try to do is focus on the really key learnings that I feel quite privileged to have developed over a number of years, key learnings and experience in terms of how to convert what is essentially an export strategy into a document that is manageable for the judges to be able to expertly judge you on. And it's a steep learning curve for them because they are not familiar with your products. They're not necessarily familiar with your markets. And it's about how you convert that which you are really familiar with into something cogent that a judge can take hold of and understand exactly what you're doing and why you are extraordinary in what you do. So if we start by saying, you know, it is a celebration of the achievements of extraordinary exporters. Exporters have far-reaching impact on the nation's economy. We have achieved amazing international success through commitment, innovation, and leadership. And we are, Australia and Queensland is imbued with the same really privileged effect that we are trusted. Australia is trusted around the world, that we do what we say and we say what we do, and we have integrity in that. And the award really just is a gold standard. It's a beautiful stamp of approval and a seal, really, an accreditation that has far-reaching power. We have a global stage where we can drive demand, and most especially the stories of exporters who have won awards inspire other Australian businesses. I learn from the stories. We have a few testimonials today, and it's mind-blowing how transformational these awards can be. So some of the benefits: it unlocks export opportunities. It enables you to stand out in a very competitive and crowded Australian market, but also a global marketplace. So we're exporting nationally to about 230 countries. It means that you've got competition, not just from Australian companies, but you've got competition from the whole world into every market that you're trying to break into. So the more accreditation and the more power you have and the more key differentiators you have in that process, the more successful you will be. The process is rigorous, and the framework for this award is so powerful that every single time I go through this process with a client, regardless of the outcome, they remark on how incredibly powerful it is in distilling down those really key parts of their strategy that they need to hold on to and they need to drive. Provides opportunity for critical thinking regarding your export strategy. It's great for benchmarking, and a vast export revenue is not a prerequisite for entering or for winning. And that's important. So the judges are really looking at process. They obviously want you to be bringing in export revenue, and they're wanting to look at how that's impacting employment for Australians. But at the end of the day, it is the process that is so powerful here and so important. This is a video from a winner.
For anyone applying for this year's Export Awards, I'd say just jump in and give it a go and back yourself as a company. Since winning the Advanced Technologies Export Award, we've gone on to develop our latest product, which is the FT11K fire tank for the CH-47 Chinook aircraft. So winning the award has been really fundamental in us securing that contract to develop that and kind of adding, some credibility to our name as we develop the product and promote it amongst government agencies, but also amongst, operators across the globe.
So talking quickly about how important export is to Queensland and to Australia in total, within Queensland, 1 in 5 jobs are export jobs. And within Australia, we employ over 3 million Australians in the export industry. And that's direct employment. That doesn't include all the downstream effect that, that our exports have on the rest of our nation. Without a doubt, export is the engine room for both Queensland's economy and also for our national economy. And it has been proven that exporters are, in the main, more resilient to global disruptions and to supply chain shocks than those who don't export, because they are exposed to so many more challenges as they go through their work. From an eligibility criteria for this award, and I do want to preface this by saying that TIQ has an amazing handbook. So if you go onto the website, you'll find all of this in well represented in great detail. What I'm trying to do today is simply skate over the top to make it clear that you don't have to boil the ocean to do this. It's actually a really straightforward process. It's really simple. And regardless of the outcome, you will derive enormous benefits from simply going through the rigor of this robust process of putting the application together. What defines an export business? Very quickly, you must earn foreign exchange, hold an Australian an ABN, operate as a separate business if you're part of a larger organization. There are some rules around government entities, which I will urge you to have a look at in the handbook. The good news is registered education and training providers are eligible, and sponsors of state or Australian Export Award programs are not eligible to apply. If we look at the products and services, there's a continuum here from goods made in Australia, from Australian products to a number of different permutations. Overall, export products or services need to include a significant percentage, so 50% or more of Australian content, and that can include IP. So very quickly, goods made in Australia from Australian products, goods made overseas, mainly using Australian primary products, goods made in Australia from Australian and imported components, goods elaborately transformed in Australia, goods made overseas using substantial Australian value add, IP or know-how. One I wasn't sure about before, which I've learned about now, is services delivered in Australia to foreign individuals or entities, or services delivered overseas using substantial Australian value add, IP or know-how. So it's quite broad in terms of the fit, and there's quite a wide continuum in terms of whether you would be eligible. From a financial perspective, the applicant needs to demonstrate the delivery of net foreign returns, and that is measured in terms of profit repatriation and employment. And again, it doesn't have to be massive amounts. It has to be that you are on the road and that you are successful and you have integrity and you're showing innovation and leadership in terms of what you're doing. Provide 3 years of export sales, unless you're applying for the Emerging Export Award, where you might be a nascent exporter. So you have been exporting for 3 years or less, in which case there is a different requirement there. For the 2022-23 year, if you don't have final actual sales, you are enabled to provide estimates, which you then support and demonstrate the veracity of those estimates. So the Premier of Queensland's Export Awards, first and foremost, honours the state's top exporters across 13 national categories, which we'll run through very quickly, and 2 state-based categories. Applicants will be via the Queensland State and Territory Export Award Program, and the winners of these national categories, so that's the 13 categories for Queensland, will progress as finalists to the National Export Awards, the Australian Export Awards. You can apply in one or more of 13 categories, and I'll run through that very quickly after this. And the applications need to be submitted in the state or territory where the organization's head office is located, or where the majority of the business is performed. And if you're in any doubt, please contact TIQ and they can help you with that decision. The Queensland Export of the Year is then chosen from the winners of those 13 national categories, and those winners in turn go through to the nationals. In the Queensland only categories, of which there are 2, the winners of those categories do not proceed to the national program. So I'm going to run through the national categories really quickly. They're spelled out in a huge amount of detail in the handbook and on the website. Just excuse me, I'm just going to find my list. Okay, so the first of the 13 is advanced technologies, and that will include information technology, digital technology, software, hardware, and digital services. Agriculture, food and beverages, self-explanatory products, services. However, it also includes technology, including farm production, manufactured food and beverages, forestry, and fisheries. Creative industries, this is a really vast one. It includes pretty well every creative industry. So music, visual and performing arts, film, TV, digital media, content, animation, software and games, festivals and event management, writing and publishing. E-commerce, fairly self-explanatory. We then move on from there to the emerging exporter, and there you can apply across any of the other 12 national categories, and the qualifying factor is that you must have been exporting for only 3 years or less. International education and training. International health includes health and well-being, so biotechnology, medical technology, digital health, medical and health fields, e-health and care services, complementary healthcare and pharmaceuticals. So a really broad category there. Manufacturing and advanced materials is essentially your manufacturing, engineering and or advanced materials development. Professional services, a broad one again. I'm going to run through this really quickly. Legal, accounting, administration and support services, business management, consulting, marketing services, franchising and licensing, engineering, financial, insurance, market research, translation services, tourism, and the arts. So really quite broad. And then we get into resources and energy, processing, value adding, provision of equipment, services, or solutions related to the extractive resources and or energy sectors. Small business sales must not exceed 10 million. And sustainability and green economy, which is a very powerful one and actually can go over the top of most of the other categories, is clean energy innovation, materials, energy efficiency, renewable energy, waste, water management, green buildings, smart cities, R&D collaboration of businesses committed to sustainable business practices. So those are the 13 national awards, and we'll come to how you're able to slice and dice and actually enter across a number of national categories without being iterative and having to complete multiple application forms. The Queensland categories, there is a Women in International Business Award, and there's one additional question for that. So you can apply for the National Award and then overlay that with a Queensland Women in International Business Award without it being too arduous in terms of completing any additional forms. And then there is a First Nations Award, which is for outstanding international success by a First Nations owned and led enterprise, with the eligibility being that the enterprise must be at least 50% owned and led by Aboriginal people or Torres Strait Islander peoples. There's a lot of information around these, again, in the handbook. Talking now about the key imperatives to successful award application, what the judges are looking for is evidence of sustainable competitive advantage. And this word sustainable will keep coming up. So it's not flash in the pan, you know, I've done a bit of exporting and now times are hard, or, you know, we've got a bit of turbulence and we're out. So sustainable competitive advantage, and you need to demonstrate that. Export success and, again, sustainable growth potential, leadership and innovation in international business and marketing strategies, commitment to diversity, inclusion, sustainability, and positive social impact. So that's a community angle that's very powerful. The value and contribution of exports to business expansion, and an overall commitment to growth in international business. So whilst the award looks at the last 3 years of your performance, there is also one of the 4 scored questions asks you about the future, where you're going, where, you know, what you see as the barriers to your success and how you plan to overcome those in a pretty turbulent world that we have at the moment. Taking the judges on a journey. My experience over the 12 years that I've been privileged to help companies with these awards is that there is a temptation to say, well, I have an export plan, I'll just shoehorn this into the awards questions and I'm sweet. And you cannot assume that the judges have any industry knowledge of your industry at all. And your best opportunity is to provide critical baseline knowledge to enable the judges to perform an effective evaluation on your company. Be focused on careful positioning, careful provision of background information, and an explanation of what your key differentiators are in your market. Ideally, if you have an export business plan framework up front, that will help you. Underpinning that with financials and performance metrics will back up the performance statements that you're going to make along the way. If you don't have an export business plan, and many companies don't, they use their original plan that they had for their Australian business, and then they move forward from there. Use the application framework as a powerful initiator of that strategy. And more especially, it's critical that every touch point of your business is consistent so that the judge can get a 360-degree of your company that is consistent. And what I mean by this is often applicants I know everyone has a day job and a night job, and they're now trying to also put an application together, and they're doing that in the spare time that they have. You might put together a very powerful and robust export application, but it's critical then, and I know Reg will bear me out on this, the judges are relentless in checking the veracity of what you're saying. Your company, are you on social media? Do you have a website? Do you have advertising? Who are your competitors? Are you on LinkedIn? Is your story consistent across all those touch points? And it's generally something that happens at the end. So once you've put the application together and your suite, and you've backed up every claim you've made with amazing financials, performance metrics, links, and images, make sure you then look at every other touch point of your business that you might not have covered within the application, to make sure that you're walking the talk in a consistent way. Have all your performance metrics to hand to commence the application. In almost all my experience, the team that is responsible for putting together the financials or even the employment figures is not necessarily the team that is putting the application together. And it's really important that you don't produce the application, then you get the numbers at the death, which happens often, and then you're having to retrofit numbers back into application. It's way more powerful to have all those metrics up front. So get those started now, so that as you are producing the application and you're making statements about your performance or your challenges, you can back those up with hard facts. In this way, the application is more compelling, it's underpinned by those metrics, and you can simply back everything up. As I said, often the metrics are provided late in the piece, and then they don't necessarily support your story, which means you don't have that critical fluidity in your application, or you're frantically retrofitting it at the end. Use facts to back up and validate your claims. Market share, revenue, profit growth, new markets. Provide web links to specific backup data. Use your tools of links and images to demonstrate your success. You have access to web links, your social media, testimonials, URLs. They also add interest. So if you consider that the judges are going through multiple applications, all written, there is a very tight word count. So to add these links also adds interest, it adds impetus, and it is an effective use of your word count. Start gathering key data now. So do the longest lead time metrics, start getting those now. Your financials, as I said, the employment data, market share information, growth information, and don't just focus on the last 3 years. The judges want to see your key performance, hard facts over the last 3 years. But if you've been doing amazing work for 20 years, make sure you talk about that. And use the key information and tools to promote your strategies. Constantly demonstrate your success. And equally, it's important to raise your challenges. During the pandemic, I had a client come to me and say, I can't enter, I can't show growth. In fact, I'm struggling. And I said, let's enter. Let's talk about what those struggles are, how turbulent the market is, what the pandemic's done, and what new strategies you have put in place to overcome these going forward. And that was super successful. From a response format point of view, the activities need to clearly reflect and effectively demonstrate the leadership, the innovation in the selected industry sector. Offer clear statements and value propositions. Be bold. If you cannot be bold and proud and demonstrate the success, you can't expect the judge to come along your journey with you. Demonstrate your agility. without a doubt, most exporters now are facing turbulence of one form or another, and it seems to be intensifying. So talk about that and talk about how agile you are, about making changes and how nimble you can be about changing foot in the face of these threats. Be consistent. So I'm sorry, I'm going on about these financials. Just make sure that your financials and your claims support the narrative so that it is fluid and it is consistent. Hold a community mindset. People matter. And I can't stress that enough. It is between the community mindset and the concern about land, environment, people, and animals. It's super powerful if you actually can, with integrity, include that in your application. Get management on board early so that they can help you to champion the data or the information that you require, which may not be within your ambit. And prepare those financials, market share data, HR content ahead of time. It also gives you time to challenge it, to question it, to massage it, and to make sure that your story is consistent and takes the judges on this amazing journey. Focus on your key attributes, your website, LinkedIn, images, logos. Make sure that they're perfect and up to date, because it is another opportunity to showcase and provide more interest to the judge when they're evaluating your application. So really quickly now, there are 7 sections. How am I doing for time? Okay, I'm doing okay. So per category, there are only 7 sections to complete. There are 20 sections in total. Don't be frightened. It's not daunting. It's very straightforward. There are only 7 of those sections you complete, and only 4 of these are scored. The rest actually are sections devoted to the 13 national categories and the 2 Queensland categories. And if you boil this down now and you say, okay, 7 sections, 4 of them are scored, it becomes a really much more manageable exercise. And where you're applying for multiple categories, you're not having to complete multiple entire applications. There might be one additional question in some instances, no additional questions. So section 1, your business details. That'll take a minute. Section 2, the category you select or the categories you select, 2 minutes. Section 3, this is really important. And I see a lot of my clients say, oh, this isn't worth anything, so I don't need to worry too much about this section. Well, actually, this is probably one of the most important sections, because this is an opportunity for you to bring your judges on your journey. And it's a free pass, because there is a word count, but it's not counted in as the next 4 sections are. So where the scored sections come in, you have very, very tight word count. So you have to be really abstemious about what you say. So this is a great opportunity to set the stage. Bear in mind that the judges need intense and really quick knowledge so that they can evaluate your success. Assume at the outset, without patronizing them, that they have zero understanding of your industry or your business, and set the scene here. Really, really important. The fact that it has no score weighting does not mean it's not considered and not read. Section 4, talking about your business, it has a 25% rating out of the total application. Think carefully about the questions that are being asked here. Make sure that you answer the questions that are being asked, because the judges have a scorecard. And if you may spend your 300 or 400 words going on just 2 of those points. If you haven't covered the other points, you can't be evaluated on them. So it's assessing the viability of your business, including your product, your service, the unique value that it brings to the market, recent milestones, and export and international success in the current climate. Tell us about your business. In your answer, consider the following. What was the motivation or idea behind your business? What makes your brand or products or service or IP unique and competitive? Who are your customers? Have you targeted new and different customers? What influence did the pandemic play, for example? Geopolitical influences, the turbulence that we're seeing now, potential recession that we might end up in. List some of the key business milestones you've achieved in the past 3 years. And what, if any, awards or recognition has your business received? Sometimes we take a lot for granted about our own businesses because we're living with it every day and we just think it's kind of de rigueur. And in fact, all of these questions are amazing because it forces you to tease out and to think hard about that which you might take for granted, but which makes you a key and different business in terms of export, and certainly in the judges' eyes. Section 5 to 17, as I said, these are the specific award categories, and you can apply for multiple categories at the same time. As a great example that TRQ has put in here, for example, if you're an avocado farmer based in North Queensland, so in a regional area, who has just started exporting, so nascent, emerging exporter, there is a minimum of 3 categories that you can apply for. And each category will not require an entirely new application. It might simply be one additional question. And of course, I might add to this, if you are also a woman, or if you are also planning to move forward into a new area, there's no reason why you can't take on some of the other categories at the same time. And again, with perhaps one additional question. Assess the business activities against the selected national category. Do these activities clearly reflect and effectively demonstrate leadership and innovation in that industry sector? You might elect to simply stay in one category, and that's perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. But it does give you the opportunity to be able to overlay different categories if you feel that you qualify in those. Then we've done the first question, which was question 4, which counted 25%. That was about your business. This is specifically about your international business and marketing strategy. So talk to that. Don't talk to anything else. Try to focus on talking to the questions here, because this is how the question is weighted. It's 40%, and it's evaluating the quality of your business and marketing strategy and your international competitive advantage. That doesn't mean you can't refer to the work you've done in Australia as a backdrop to how you then use that as a springboard to move into the international market. However, you need to dwell almost exclusively on what you've done in the export markets. The value or impact of any diversity and inclusion, sustainability of social impact also becomes really key in terms of your implementation. And assessing the level and sustainability of your international revenue, really powerful. So again, demonstrate that you are here for the long term and how you are managing and monitoring the world at large, the markets you're in, and how agile you are in terms of being able to, if necessary, reinvent yourselves in the face of major competition, turbulence, changes in circumstance. Business management, this is further 25%. So we're now at 90% with this third question. And the criteria here is assess how and if the business's employment figures and human resources strategies support export growth. In my experience, I found that companies sometimes struggle to answer this question. We tend to set a course, particularly if you've started as an Australian business, you set a course, you know what you're doing, you know what your vision is, you know what your ethics are and how you treat your people and how you manage your human resources. When you move into the export market, you tend to, my experience, you tend to then change or modify that path in terms of what you need for export. And that may mean you've got agents in other countries, or you've got agents within Australia, you've got contractors and so forth. So it's important to look at a couple of things here, in my opinion. The one is, look at your direct employment figures. Also look at your downstream impact within Australia. So you might employ 100 people. However, you might look at what I call a multiplier effect, that you are also hiring contractors and part-timers and agents, which impacts the overall employment for Australia. And that's one of the major metrics you're being measured on. So do think about that. Think about the downstream impact. And more than that, a lot of companies don't necessarily subscribe to a particular people management, a textbook people management approach. But what might help you is to find one that fits with your vision and your values and your human resource capability and approach. And then shape yourself on that, because it makes it easier, particularly as you have a very tight, pardon me, very tight word count, makes it easier to refer to. So I can't think of one directly, but find one, and do that with integrity, but find one that you think best demonstrates your approach to your people, and then refer to it, because it will amplify your approach, and it will add credence to the approach that you're using. And I do stress, I see it all the time. A lot of companies don't have a formalized approach to managing their people, but they do an amazingly wonderful job. And it is invariably a textbook-based format that's being applied. 19.3, and I've just highlighted a couple of the key ones here. Assess the structure of the business's export and international operations, and have a look at the systems and see whether the business is appropriately resourced for expansion. Really key approach that the judges are looking for is, are you wise to what's going to happen going forward? And don't be afraid of bad news. Don't be afraid to talk about the impact of major turbulence, major events happening, whether that's in Australia or whether that's to do with your raw materials or your export markets. The judges are looking to see whether you are agile in dealing with these challenges that will confront you. And then more especially if you're talking about export expansion, they want to feel confident that you're appropriately resourced. They're looking at soundness of financial strategy for international business. Does it support the international plans? So if you're saying you're going to go into, for example, new markets, hire a whole lot of new agents or new staff in country or in Australia, if you're looking at different and costly marketing strategies going forward, can you afford them? Does your business support those international plans? So again, it comes back to every touch point, the consistency, and that story that you're taking the judges, the journey that you're taking them on, making sure that everything lines up. The final question is international business future direction. It has a weighting of 10. Assess the evidence of effective measures and business commitment to international business growth. Here, focusing on sustainability, it's that S word again, macro influences in a turbulent world, and consider drawing on Australia's relative stability within that. That concludes the question. So again, 4 scored questions, 1 really important question, section 3, which isn't scored, but gives you a free pass on an opportunity with a word count to actually bring the judges up to speed about your industry, your business, your products, your market, and the competition that confronts you. Just a few nuts and bolts. Stick to the award criteria and answer the questions. Use word count wisely, be succinct and compelling. Personally, I find that I go back iteratively over the application, wordsmithing and crafting and trying to use as few words as possible to say as much as possible, because it is quite a tight word count. And it does force you to distill down what the essence is of your business and what the essence is of your strategy. Logo and image resolution requirements and specs. Pay attention to those. And I only say that because so often when I'm working with clients, that's the part that whistles in at 5 to 5 on the closing day. So start that. That's one of the longer lead times there that you'll see in the handbook. They're very tight specifications about the image sizes and resolution, and really important to make sure you capitalize on the opportunity to attach logos, images, videos, etc., because again, it colors your application for the judges, and it makes it easier for them to fast track their knowledge and understand who you are and what you're doing. Include the links to support your application. It also helps to flex your word count. Proofread and ensure the application reads well. That's just a piece about the judges having to go on this journey with you. The easier that journey is, the more successful you're likely to be. Required attachments, they're in the handbook. Perfect opportunity to showcase your enterprise. They ask for a minimum of 1 business logo. They ask for a minimum of 3 product or service images. They specifically say, don't send us headshots of people in your company. That's not what they're interested in. They're really interested in your business and your products and your services. They're interested in images that reflect your business's products and services, culture and community. So that's the community again, minimum of 3. So you can start thinking about that now. And heed the formats required, start early, and make sure you leverage that opportunity optimally. Just a quick timeline for you. So the applications are open. The 9th of June, the applications close. Judging starts. In September, the finalists for Queensland will be announced. And in October, the Queensland has their awards gala. The winners from the Queensland National Awards go forward into the Australian National Export Awards, and the 2 Queensland specific awards do not. So they are awarded and rewarded at that Queensland gala. In November, we have the Australian Export Investment Awards dinner, where the national award winners are announced and celebrated. So just a quick word on leveraging the awards. Again, really powerful that when you get the award and you end up with the assets that you are able to use to leverage those awards. Foreign markets respect our regional and our national awards in Australia. It's a stamp of approval. It's an accreditation. I see the power of this all the time. Make sure once you've got that award, you talk about it. You can tell the world, tell your customers, make sure it's emblazoned on your website, it's on your LinkedIn profile, it's on all your communications. If you've got brochures and PDFs, slap it on there, because it is it's just an amazing validation. It's an amazing validation to your work, and capitalize on the power of the Premier of Queensland's Export Awards, capitalize on the Australian Export Awards, exploit the differential advantage that this award will bring you, leverage the assets and the impetus across your customers, your clients, make sure they understand what a differentiator it is. Take learnings from completing the export application and take learnings from other applicants and winners. I learn from every winner. I learn from every application that I complete. And I'm going to end this by saying, if you do not win an award, or you do not win an award this year, you need to take heart that completing the award application process is so robust and rigorous. I'm almost willing to guarantee, I will guarantee, that you will learn by simply being part of the process, simply being part of that rigor and being forced to distill down what your strategy is, being forced to challenge yourselves about what you're doing and whether it's enough and what opportunities you're perhaps leaving on the table. Every entrant that I have been involved with has said that it's been incredibly beneficial and have taken the application into their export strategy at the end of the day. We have here an amazing testimonial from Plunge, and I urge you to hear him out. This is Cam Levick, who's the CEO, because what he says encapsulates pretty well everything that we've talked about today.
We entered the awards because, as a young company, understanding how we're benchmarking ourselves is an important step in our journey. And it's not so much about kind of comparing ourselves to other pool manufacturers, but how is it that other businesses are growing and learning about export. Winning the award was, in some ways, a great relief. You know, there's a lot of nerves about actually how are we going against other exporters. And for us, it was a great joy. And I think recognition for a lot of hard work that the team have put in both here in Australia and in the US.
Thanks, Ruth. That was excellent. Reg, here back again. We're going to get to some of, someone's been asking some questions, which is great. I do want to touch on one thing that Ruth's presentation mentioned, and only, I guess, from the privilege of being a part of overseeing the assessment side of things, that judge's journey is really interesting, because Ruth made the really good point that don't expect the judges to be experts in your field. Normally, each application is assessed by 3 or 4 judges. You could expect maybe 1 or 2 of them at least to be in the field to some description, but expect 1 or 2 others to be outside. So we like to get different opinions. They're all experts in terms of exporting and international growth and business, but in terms of that, they might not be food and ag business experts in the field of food and ag. So really consider that from that layman's perspective. And indeed, I would recommend perhaps if you get that application done early enough, which we obviously recommend, is get someone outside your business to have a read of it as well, because it just provides that perception that everything is understandable and clear. And I might also add, again, Ruth's reiterated the value in applying for a few different categories, the avocado category. So, you know, apply for food and ag and regional and possibly emerging business and women's led or even Indigenous. They could all be assessed. So while there is the bulk of the application is one all the same, but there are individual questions for each category, they could be read by 6 or 7 or 8 different judges. So don't expect, just because you answered in your regional exporter categories, that the person who is judging your food and beverage or your women in international business answers is the same person. So feel free to reiterate a point you've made previously in those award category questions. They can be read by completely different people. There won't be any assumed knowledge in those individual questions. So just something to remember that from that perspective. A couple of questions here, guys, and we appreciate your interest, and this will be shared later. Look, some questions that you can grab straight from the website. So the website does have the application guidebook and those videos that came up there. A little bit clunky, but you can watch them in brief, in full and nice and clear on the website, which is just exportawards.qld.gov.au. I'm going to start from the back, Ruth. I'll get you to answer some of these. So one of the questions here is for those applicants that have a product or service that is quite technical, so it might be advanced manufacturing or those sorts of things. What tips do you have for communicating their value proposition in layman's terms? So very much relevant to what the point we just made.
So I'll come back to the point I made about the free pass on section 3. Use that. It's not scored, but it's critical. And it's there for a reason. It's there to give you that opportunity to be able to, in a slightly more generous way, help the judges to understand a bit more about your market. Don't forget, you can use links. Don't overuse links, but you can use links. You can use links not only to your website, but to industry type information that can just fast track them to know enough about who you are and what you are, that they can be expert. And they will also go out, you need to consider, they will go out and seek additional information. If it is such an incredibly niche technical area, they will, to equip themselves, they will do that. But you can't rely on that, because the judges, as you know, Reg said, they've got scores of applications to go through.
Thanks, Ruth. Touching another question that was asked about, I guess, the regional exporter perspective, and this is one I can touch on. And this is one that's pretty much established from national down, so continuity across all the states, and it's that definition of regional exporter. Now, again, that's on our website. You can see that there, but basically it's where the businesses who head office or the majority of their operations are based in a non-metropolitan location. And from a Queensland perspective, identified as those metropolitan locations, Brisbane City Council, Ipswich City Council, Logan City Council, Moreton Bay Regional Council, or I hear in today's paper, they're now Moreton Bay City Council, and the City of Gold Coast jurisdiction. So if you're outside of those, great, go for your guns in terms of regional exporter. So yes, that latest question. So a company with head office in Brisbane, but major operations in regional Queensland, yeah, you can justify those as a regional exporter. What else here? So this is a good question, Ruth. So awards are great. Any tips or tricks to get my bosses on board, especially to get financials from accounts early? Get them to watch this webinar again. Right?
So yes, and it's a great question, because you've actually hit the nub of some of the bottlenecks that happen. I think probably the best is to go back onto the TIQ site or wade back through this presentation and have a look at some of the amazing benefits. Show some of the testimonial. I mean, the two testimonials that we had here, whether it was Helitac or Plunge, they demonstrate how powerful these awards can be, not just for exposure for the business on an export market, but for what it does at home in terms of your own team and your own team's esteem and motivation. So I think you try and sell them with the major benefits. And I think there's quite a lot of information we've given here about that. Show them a couple of testimonial videos. And then perhaps you go a step further and you go to the finance team and get them to understand how important this will be, because at the end of the day, they're on the journey too.
Thanks, Ruth. That's great. A few more questions, and if there are any through, we've probably got 5 minutes to ask those, so please chuck them in the chat. But we've got a few to go through here. Yeah. One is we're a very busy business. I know you all are, so we appreciate that. Got a loose export strategic plan, but I don't have the bandwidth to put an application together. Is there anyone that can help? This seems like a bit of a setup for you, Ruth. So I guess I'll answer a bit, but then so TIQ can assist, and our contact details there. We can give you a bit of a guidance, but we do have access to a bit of an expert, don't we, Ruth?
So I have, although I did see, I think you're almost at 100 attendees at this webinar, and I will honor what I said. I'm very happy to spend 15 or 20 or half an hour with anybody who is thinking they might want to enter and isn't quite sure how to go about it. Very happy to do that. I'm so passionate about these awards because I have seen the value that they bring, both internally and on the export markets. So I'm happy to do that, and I believe that TIQ will share my details on the website. Happy to do that. And then more than that, I'm happy to consider helping on a fee-paying basis, helping to get those applications in. And that can be anything from a couple of hours at the end or at the beginning to putting the whole thing together. But I'm happy to help.
Thanks, Ruth. That's great. Great resource for you. All right, let's run through a couple of these other ones. I've only been in the export business for 2 years. I don't have a massive export revenue yet. Am I eligible for the Emerging Exporter Award? Most definitely eligible, but Ruth, and I guess you touched on that, is as much the story of success as anything else. It's not purely about the numbers.
Yes.
And you know, the story of export, we're looking at this financial year, that is what we're talking about from Export Awards, but we don't rely on massive numbers. But what is the success? What's the growth? What have you achieved? So remember that. I won an award back in 2015, great for the business. But can I apply again? That's an easy one. Absolutely, we welcome your application. It's a whole new year and there's new successes this year. So that's an easy one from
And it's also great to keep that award current, you know, so, you know, I was in retail in a past life, and the story was you're only as good as last week's sales. And I'm not suggesting that for export, but 2015 was a while ago. And if you can now update that and say, oh, wow, you know, 2023, she's still going, they're still going, it's powerful.
Thanks, Ruth. Okay, another one here. So I want to enter the awards. My writing skills aren't a strong point. Do I have to write a lot? Can I use bullet points? I think you probably answered this along the way, but it's a good approach to do it that way anyway, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah. So encourage that. If you as long as they meet the criteria, as Ruth has said, answering the questions, we don't expect stories. Nice, clear answers that are to the point. Absolutely.
And sometimes you might get a person who's not skilled at writing business applications. They might be just great journalists or writers. Sometimes they can change the meaning of what you're saying. So I would just be a little bit careful there. If you're going to use someone to help you, make sure that they're a business person. Sure, they can check your grammar and your spelling, but anyone else, you're probably better off sticking with your own work or finding somebody who is export or business focused.
Okay. I identify as an Indigenous and run an export business. I believe I'm eligible for the First Nations Award, but I don't have Supply Nation certificate. As such, do I need one? Will I still be eligible? No, I'll answer this one. No, you don't. This is the first time we've run this award. We're really excited about it. We expect other states and the national body to follow suit in future years, but we're getting going now. Really excited about some of the applications, looking forward to this. So you don't need that Supply Nation certificate, but we can work with you individually with any questions with that. But no, absolutely, we encourage you to apply. We've done that one. We've done that one. Our business is quite diverse. We try to drill down on specific examples or give a general overview of the wider business. Ruth, thoughts on that one?
Sorry, can you just explain, do you want to drill down or just give an overview?
They're asking, should they, because they're quite diverse business.
Yes, yes.
Should we try to drill down on specific examples or give a general overview of the wider business?
So my answer is probably you need to try to do both. Yep. And the challenge here is the word count. And that's why I was saying use that section 3 to try to give as much background and then use links. So if you're needing to drill down and you're short of word count, then try and see if you have links to parts of your website so that the judge will make the decision. Do I need more? Yeah, I understand. But you do need to drill down because at the end of the day, the devil's in the detail.
Excellent. Thanks for that. Yes, and that I think that's a really good point. We need, but maybe that first area, that general, but we need to nail that detail as well. The next question is, can container shipping lines apply for Emerging Exporter Award? Look, that's probably a very specific question. I'm happy to take that on board specifically. Whoever write that, if you want to reach out to us and we can answer that. Ostensibly, yes, but we probably just need to drill down into the eligibility. You've got all the requirements there. We might just need to sort of drill down to that quite specifically for your company, but would be welcome to have a chat with you about that and learn more about your business. So I'm not going to say no at this stage.
Sounds hopeful.
Yes, exactly. With regards to the business run by women category, can the business be a 50-50 co-owner, male, female, or should it be 51% owned? Co-owner is fine. Look, we just want to see that strong impact that you have had on the business, tell those success stories that we've talked about as well. And that's what we sort of really want to hear. It's a very aspirational award as much as we're setting the sort of the tone for the industry. But yes, absolutely, that's fine. You're a leader, co-lead as it is, but very much so. Okay, and another one here might be our last unless anyone else comes in, but we export our services to our offices in the US and Canada, but invoices are there. Are we still eligible? I guess we need to go back to those eligibility. I guess in the end, is there foreign income coming into Queensland business?
Yes,
that's
right.
what we need to be clear of, and that's what you would need to make clear in your application.
Yes.
Correct, Ruth?
Yes, income and employment. So
yes.
It's if all the money's staying there and all the team members live there.
Yeah, exactly.
Not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we've just got one more question's come in. Should neurodiversity be mentioned in the application? Has been an important aspect of my journey? And absolutely. We love hearing those stories. And that's one of the great elements of this program, of hearing these stories of people overcoming all sorts of challenges, whatever they may be. And that is one that is a great one. So I would encourage you to mention it. And I think that's it. I think we've done. So I guess, first of all, can I thank you to all the participants online for coming on and showing an interest in our program. We hope you're encouraged to progress and complete an application. There is some great support here at TIQ. We're happy to help. You've heard Ruth's offer for support as well. Ruth, if I could thank you very much for your time and your support for the program and your passion for the program. Very much appreciated there as well. And to everyone else, we look forward to seeing your applications come through. We hope that come October, we see you at the Queensland event, and in fact in November, maybe down there in Canberra at Parliament House as well, receiving an award and showcasing the very best that Queensland can offer. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to speaking with you all soon.